So good morning planet, and today is 15th of March 2023, and welcome back to the series which we are doing, the NDA Tales, on our YouTube channel, which is called the Pandubiwala Pier. And as you are aware, this is the third in the series, and today we are doing this tale with Lieutenant General D.V. Kalra. General Kalra belongs to the 5th course of the Foxtrot Squadron from the National Defence Academy. That is the pioneer course which stepped inside the portals of the Foxtrot Squadron when it was created. And these are the gentlemen who actually laid the foundation where we all came in and stepped inside the squadron. And it's again a very big and auspicious day for us because today happens to be the birthday of General Kalra. And he and the good lady have graciously allowed us this time to spend with them and to record this video. So here is General Kalra sitting right in front of me, though when you see in the camera you will find that both of us are sitting together, but he's sitting right opposite to me and I can see the magnificent personality. He had a great run in the Indian Army. He became the Director General of the Ordnance Services. So before we take this interview ahead, General Kalra, what do you want to tell us about yourself, sir?
Thank you, Arun, for getting me on board the fraternity of the Fox Squadron. It's sheer nostalgia to recall all those days that I spent there. I joined JSW in January 1951 and we were posted to Baker Squadron 4-day. Spent 3 terms in that 4-day, and then we all moved over to Fox Squadron. The pioneers of Fox Squadron along with me were Lieutenant General Vijay Madan, Major General Kuldeep Singh Khan, Major General Kuldeep Singh Aujla. These are the people, and myself, of course, we all moved over. Cadet number 497, cadet number 500, that is myself, etc., etc. So the memories go back to those days. Fox Squadron, as you know, was set up when we went there for the first time, and it was at the very edge of the entire complex, almost in the wilderness. Those barracks had been abandoned for a long time and nobody had ever lived in them. So we had the, shall I say, privilege or pleasure or the duty to make them habitable. All the grass, the weeds had to be removed and made them look decent and put some few flower beds, with the semblance of flower beds. And there you could hear the howling of all the jackals and the snakes around, but yet we survived. We lived there, and that's what we left for the future generations to build upon. And I think 3 or 4 generations thereafter, you all moved to Kharagwasta, the magnificent place. God bless you. It's a pleasure seeing that place and interacting with you. This generation gap is tremendous, and I must compliment Arun. You know, it's easy to make a group of course mates because you've spent 4 years together. But to make a group of squadron people who are separated by so many years from course to course, it is not so easy. I think it's remarkable effort on his part that he's brought this group and trying to bridge the generation gap and see how we move from time to time. We are the relics of the old past, but nevertheless, very, very happy to be with you all and to share with you whatever I can recall. Thank you.
That's a marvelous introduction which you have given us, sir. So, sir, let me just ask you, when you reached the JSW,
yes,
can you recall the first thoughts that were in your mind? How did you plan to be in JSW?
How did I plan?
Yes.
Well, honestly, nobody from my family had ever been in the army. We knew nothing about it. I am a product of the partition of India. But then under the circumstances, my father said, let me see how good you are, go and appear for the exam. And I did. And I managed to pass. And then I went for the interview and I managed to qualify. And then my parents said, nothing doing. Nobody ever goes to the army from our family. Forget about it. My mother was particularly reluctant. But in the end, when I said, listen, I think I should be allowed to go, give me a chance. And then eventually she relented. Not only she relented, she helped me to prepare for it and go, and I joined. The first days of the JSW were, not very pleasant. Moving from the warmth of a family to the absolute coldness of a foreign place, a totally different environment, and being addressed as, you damn cadet, come over here, pick up my box. And then, I had been given a suit at home, which I did not have earlier. and I was asked to do a front roll in the suit, and I said, my God, my new suit, and you want me to do a front roll? He said, nothing doing, you better do it. So that's how the first few days, carrying boxes and holdalls of the senior cadets returning from the holidays, that's how the introduction to that was. But then today when I look back, I think that was a very good grooming, getting you into the army mindset, learning to obey, carry out the orders without
So I'm very happy to note that, sir, what we faced, your generation also faced that. So I think that's a brilliant thing that you have told us, because we always felt that we didn't know that, how the formative courses of the National Defence Academy would have actually inculcated all these trends, and like you rightly said, that it brings you into the army fold. You learn to obey the orders.
That's right.
And which was the city that you started your journey from, sir, when you joined the JSW?
We were in Delhi,
Okay.
and traveled from Delhi to Dehradun, and that reminds me, my father came to see me off at the railway station, and in those days we didn't have the kind of trains that you have now. We have those 3-tier sleepers, and he put me in, and there was a senior cadet there. I wouldn't name him. He said that my father told him, look after him. He's a young boy, and he really did look after me, because the kind of bullying that I got, it really made me learn a lot of things. So that is how I traveled from Delhi to Dehradun.
Wonderful. And how old were you, sir, when you made this
15
journey?
years and 9 months.
15 years and 9 months. And what was the kind of education that JSW was imparting during those days? What kind of studies that you did?
Yes.
What kind of subjects did you learn?
Yes. In fact, I think we had almost 20 or 25 subjects. Almost everything on earth was taught to us. We were taught science and maths, and we were taught arts and studies and sociology, so many things. And then there was a foreign language to be learned, and there was carpentry to be learned, and blacksmithy to be learned, and drawing to be learned. And I think there was no subject that they left untouched. So those were also languages, and I picked up Persian because I had some background with Urdu, so I thought I'll take Persian, and that was because we used to have a system of grading called AKE. I do not know if we still have it. Application, knowledge, and experience or something, in which you are graded, and marks were 555. So if you did not do well, you got 222 or 333, but Persian you got 555. So I said, okay, whether I learned Persian or not is another matter, but Mr. Ram Singhani, our teacher, was a very fine human being. So I managed to get 555, which always helped you in other matters. So subjects, in fact, if you ask me, we had wonderful teachers, Mr. Many and Mr. Basu, who taught us both geography. Then Mr. Bhavnani, who is very well known, he taught us chemistry, and I'll tell you some tales about Mr. Bhavnani. Mr. Sarvadekar, and Mr. Gibson was our principal. In fact, these are the people who really molded us, if you ask me. They are the people who really trained us, and they're wonderful teachers, wonderful human beings. They loved you, but they always pulled you up also, if you ever heard.
So after you finished with the JSW, then you shifted to IMA, which was again co-located within Dehradun.
I must correct you here. You see, not many of you know that at the time when we passed out of the JSW, that was the Joint Services Wing of the National Defence Academy, there was no IMA.
Oh.
It was the military wing of the National Defence Academy. This history, in fact, if you see, I produced this souvenir, and I said we had a lot of debate and research done. We are 5th GSW and 14th military wing courses. During that time, in the interim period, before military wing was actually named as the IMA, there was an interim period during which it went to military college, Armed Forces Academy. They did not know really what to do. So we were the Joint Services Wing and the military wing, both of the NDA, as the same commandant, General Habibullah. Later on, IMA got its name back when you all moved to Kharakvasta and became NDA, and this became IMA. So this little gap, this history is not very well known.
So then does that mean that where the present IMA is located, that came up during that time?
No, it was always there.
Okay.
But it was not known during our period. It was known earlier IMA. It was not during our time, it was not known IMA. Later on, it regained its name IMA. In between, it was called Military College for some time.
Okay. So did you get a chance to visit the main National Defence Academy after it came up? You
Yes,
went?
yes. I visited during my post-retirement period. I visited a couple of times, twice. In fact, I was no. When was it? I no during my one of my courses that I did in Pune.
Okay.
I was posted in Dehradun. I visited that place once.
So did you go to the Foxtrot Squadron then?
I did. Totally different.
Yes.
Totally different.
Yes. So that's the most amazing part. So you see, now this interview has kind of brought in this, I mean, we didn't know. I mean, I didn't know personally. I don't know many who would be watching this may not be knowing that IMA was a
At
military
that
wing
point of time, we
of
did
the
not
Nat-
have the name
yeah,
IMA
IMA.
during that period.
Okay.
But subsequently, IMA is it because when we all moved from Khadakvasla, sorry, from Clementown to Khadakvasla, you took the name of National Defence Academy.
Yes.
So this part of the military wing of National Defence Academy became IMA.
Wonderful. And do you have any specific memory of your course mates who joined the Fox Squadron? Anyone in particular? Do you remember anything? Any one incident which still tickles your bone and you feel ki, what did he do at that day? And
Well, as I told you, the people who came along with me were Vijay Madan. He was supposed to be much better in English than all of us, and the tutors told us that train these people also, myself and Kuldeep Khan. So he took pains to teach us that, and Kuldeep Aujla were there. And then, yes, one of our course mates was Mohinder Singh Johar. He was the CSM, of course, a very tough chap. And one NP Singh. NP Singh was an Air Force cadet. He was our senior cadet captain. And he took us to task. Even in fourth term, he did not spare us. Even patti parades in the fourth term, I think that is something which I can never forget. You do patti parades as first, second, and third termers, but I did a patti parade even in fourth term under him.
at a course mate leading.
As a course mate. So, because somewhere or the other I may have been late or something of that nature. So that is what I can recall as something that really tickles, and I remember that very well.
I think that is wonderful. Today the course mates cannot make anyone do anything like this.
I have done that, and he took particular pleasure in punishing a fourth term person. He says, you also will do patti parade, and I did that. Of course, I was next door room to him, and he did one or two changes, and he said, okay, that's enough. So that is how.
So how did your family and especially your parents adapt when you came back for the holidays in the first term, or
God.
what was that thing which traveled across your family?
Homecoming, I have 5 sisters.
So,
And where we lived, my uncle and aunt, homecoming, everybody would come.
yes.
And when you are going, everybody would be there to see you off.
Yeah.
And they'll give you all their blessings, and something which I think is very, very, very emotional. I mean, that family, they sent you, and then of course they keep on worrying about you, keep on asking you how you are. And at the JSW, I was one of those cadets who I felt rather more cold than anybody else did. So I made a special request, and I think I was the only cadet who was allowed to get a quilt other than blankets.
Okay.
So my father sent me a quilt, which in all the kit layout I had to keep it somewhere else so that nobody else. So the family was, they gave me such a lot of support, such a lot of care, such a lot of love, and whenever I came home, they try and get some additional clothes or something were made. And
When I did my little research on you, sir, and whatever I could gather of your persona,
yeah.
you continued to teach for a very long time, even after your retirement from the army. And one peculiar thing which I noticed and which I was told by someone, now I won't name the person who actually told me, but he said when you were doing the staff college, he remembers it very fondly. He said the way you conducted yourself during the staff course and every war game that was played, you played a very prominent role, and being from the ordnance services and indulging into the hardcore tactics and so I think that shows one great part of your personality, which I can see even today. So what actually motivated you, and it's kind of a folklore, I don't know whether anyone has ever admitted this in front of you, but there are many people who are still alive and remember your staff college tenure.
Thank you, Arun. That was certainly a unique experience. I did attend the staff college. I got a competitive vacancy to go there. And I was the only ordnance officer in the entire course. I was the only ordnance officer. And my neighbor was Vipin Joshi, who later became the chief,
Yes.
also my course mate. And we spent, shall I say that as an ordnance officer, I had to put an extra effort to learn tactics and everything, which came to them naturally, their practice. So I learned the book more than they learned the on the ground. So on one particular instance, now that you've asked me, forgive my being telling you the way you asked this question. In one of the sand models discussions, there was a question of a plan for attack or defense. I don't remember really. And the sand model, the chief instructor was present, the commandant was, everybody was there, and they asked to deploy the guns, etc., etc. And a very senior artillery cadet was a very well-known person. He went and deployed the guns there. And then the chief instructor asked, any comments from anybody? Now in the whole course, 150 people, nobody answered. I stood up. And people laughed. Here is an ordnance officer, but the chief instructor said, let him. I said, sir, with due regards and respect to the artillery officer, he has put the guns where he has done, but as per the book, there is something wrong. I can only quote the book. The book says A, B, C, and D, and what he has done, unfortunately, does not meet all those requirements. He said, can you then come and deploy? Now how do I know? I went up to the sand model, I shifted the little roundel a little bit here and there, and he said, very well done. Oh, I said, well, thank you very much, sir. So that is how they thought that I had some inclination of G-type duties, not the Q-type duties. And I do not know whether they marked me from there or not, but later on also, on a couple of occasions, I had the occasion to be recognized. And then at the end of the staff college, I was the only ordnance officer to be posted as G2 operations of a division.
Wonderful.
Which is not normal. Normally, an ordnance officer will go as a DQ, but I was, and then, in fact, I do not know, I don't want to go further. Brigade major's job, brigade commanders would not be happy to have an ordnance officer, but up to a divisional level. So I spent my tenure in 3 Div as the G2 ops, where when I was posted, the artillery officer along with me was posted as a DQ. So the GOC said there's something wrong in the posting order. An ordnance officer doing a G job, an artillery officer doing a Q job. When I rose to the army headquarters, they said there's nothing wrong. He will do it. And then I had the good fortune of having very good senior officers, Colonel GS and my GOC. They held my hand and I survived. That's what I did.
Marvelous, sir. I think whatever we are recording today, and it will be retained for posterity. It would be available to so many officers who would see this video, and across the generations. I think it does pass a very important message that it is very important to understand the basics, and everyone is equally allowed to understand the basics. So I think your generation is also special in one very important way. Maybe when I look at my generation, I still feel that we saw the kind of the effects of partition, in the sense that the country was still evolving. I mean, when people like me were born, I'm 70, 71 vintage. Now, people, when you were there, in 1952, when people joined the JSW, then subsequently joined the army, probably the army's, culture, traditions, apart from that, certain standard operating procedures, the technologies coming in, or maybe the army changing dimensions, you saw a great deal. Do you want to reflect anything on that? How you saw these, army which has just kind of come out of a partition, regroup itself, and then set on a path, and we have such a fantastic a traditional army that we live on today, and we are still so proud of our legacy. So when you rose up into the echelons of the army, how do you reflect on that phase now at this stage of your life? Like the contribution which your generation made to see to it where the army, or where the services, where the corps, which you serve is today, because of those. I hope I'm able to frame my question correctly to you.
First is the transformation of an absolute child, a civilian who has no idea of the army, being turned into an army person. The background, you bring certain values and from home, and certain regional values that you get during your training. So you are being equipped for a totally different kind of world. That was, of course, a fair. I mean, I would say that it built upon your values, strengthened them, and taught you something new. Then, when you joined service, of course, the army has undergone tremendous amount of transformation. From what we saw in the beginning, I'm an ordnance officer. So, from what I saw, a lot of work being done manually, clerical work, etc., etc. I'm an ammunition officer, and I must tell you that also I had the good fortune of being sent to UK to do an ammunition course, and where again, in all humility, I would say I topped the list in UK. And when I visited later on, they even read out my report and they said, so now I saw the transformation of large depots of ours carrying large stocks of equipment, old vintage equipment, which had to be shed and new had to be brought in. We had to move from commodity-based this thing to rather smaller quantities but more sophisticated equipment. The entire system had to change, both by way of accounting. And as time passed, rather than large quantities, small quantities came, sophisticated equipment came, and they hardly came to the depot. From the ship they were unloaded and sent off straight to the units because they were in need of those, and we were made to follow up and account, etc., etc. in the army. That was my part of it. Our relationship with the supported arms and services qualitatively changed. It is no question of us saying, I've done my job. No, the question is, how do you satisfy your customers? They were very demanding customers. And to army, customers are very, very demanding. They want everything, every time, everywhere, which only an ordnance officer, people from services know. It is not possible to have everything, everywhere, all the time. You can have most of the things, most of the places, most of the time. But then you have to do that, and you have to satisfy them throughout the service. That is what we kept on doing, to satisfy them to our best ability and to the extent we could.
I think that's a wonderful recall, sir, and definitely in your service career, you also saw 62, 65, 71. I mean, I think, the kind of transitions which probably your generation has gone through, is worth a recall. I think a lot of the young generation and how the institution is evolving even now, I think these lessons are very, very important.
In 62, I happened to be in the Congo. I was commanding a small unit as part of the United Nations force. In 65, I happened to be in the UK to do the course. But in 71, I was definitely in India.
Very nice.
I was posted in Srinagar. I just moved from from Leh to Srinagar, where, in fact, I must recall this incident. When I got posted to 2FOD in Srinagar and the 71 war broke out, I had come to Delhi to see my family and children. My wife said, I want to come with you. I said, listen, people are coming out of Srinagar, out of Kashmir here because the war is likely to take place. She said, no, I'll go there. So I moved my family against all the convoys when we went to Srinagar.
No problem.
When it was likely to be a troubled area. And then for the want of any other accommodation, we were put up in the mess. Myself and my daughters, both of them. We were in the mess, and then whenever the siren would go, we would run and jump into the trench we had dug up. After a few such instances, they would run faster than me. I would be sleeping and they would be in the trenches. So my children recall that very well. So that is the time that happened. 71 war, I was very much there, and I had the duty at that time to support the troops out of 2FOD where I was. And we were, of course, the depot was one of the targets, but fortunately there was no direct attack on us.
Marvelous, sir. So